Hi, this is my first Humphry book to read, and I am loving it. We're in chapter 14 of Winter According to Humphry, and chapter 14 is called The Perfect Present. On Thursday afternoon, things suddenly changed. "Oh my gosh, look!" Thomas shouted. "It's snowing!" I turned and looked out the window behind me. Big, thick snowflakes were tumbling down from the sky. My friends oohed and awed, and Miss Brisbane told them they could come to the window to look out. "Do you think any two of them are the same?" Phoebe wondered aloud. "Our experiment," Small Paul said. "You said if it snowed, we could study the snowflakes." "That's right," Miss Brisbane said. Then so many things happened. Miss Brisbane sent Paul F., that's Small Paul, down to the office to ask someone in the principal's office to get something from the freezer. She and my classmates got their coats on, and then Miss Brisbane took a magnifying glass out of her desk drawer. Small Paul came back with a package of black paper that Miss Brisbane had frozen. Humans are strange, you know. Miss Brisbane handed Paul his coat, and then they all raced outside. Suddenly it was quiet, quiet, quiet in room 26. "Og," I asked, "do you know what happened?" My froggy friend didn't answer. He only splashed around in the water. Then I saw them out my window. They were catching snowflakes on pieces of black paper, then bending over them with a magnifying glass. "They're looking at snowflakes," I told Og. "I hope they'll tell us about it," I said. "Boing, boing," Og replied. And guess what? When they were back in the classroom, they did. The paper had to be frozen ahead of time so that the snowflakes wouldn't melt right away, Miss Brisbane said. "So, what did you see?" "There were about 1,000,000 broken snowflakes," Thomas T. True answered. Thomas does like to exaggerate. "A lot of them were broken," Miss Brisbane said. "But how many of you saw snowflakes with 6 sides?" All my friends' hands were raised. "And they were all different," Sophie said. "No two were alike, so maybe Paul F. was wrong about that." "You'd have to look at trillions of snowflakes to know," Paul replied. "They were beautiful," Rolling Rosie said. Miss Brisbane let my friends take time to draw the types of snowflakes they'd seen. While they worked, she called Sophie up to her desk and talked to her so softly I couldn't hear a word they said. At first I thought Sophie was in trouble for talking too much again. She loves to talk. But when I saw her smile, I knew she couldn't be in trouble. So what was Miss Brisbane telling her? Sophie nodded, and then nodded again. Miss Brisbane took a piece of paper out of her drawer and handed it to her. I was only sorry Miss Brisbane forgot to tell me what was going on. After all, I am the classroom pet. It had been an exciting day in room 26. I was staring out the window, trying to get a good look at the falling snowflakes, but I guess I dozed off. I woke with a start when I heard Miss Brisbane say, "So, class, tomorrow is the big day. We'll rehearse the songs in the classroom before the show. After Winter Wonderland is over, you'll go home with your families for the winter holidays." Tomorrow? I couldn't believe my tiny ears. I wish I had a tiny calendar hidden behind my mirror, along with my notebook. "Don't forget to practice tonight, Daniel," Miss Brisbane said as my friends left for the day. "You too, Sophie." I knew Daniel would be playing Jingle Bells, but I had no idea what Sophie would be practicing. And I still had no idea where I would be spending the winter break. Everybody in the class would be celebrating, but what about Og and me? Would we have anything to celebrate? Og. I suddenly realized that I hadn't been thinking enough about my next-door neighbor. I wanted to give him a gift, but so far, I hadn't done anything about it. It's not easy to think of the gift for Og. For one thing, he's always splashing around in water, so he'd ruin just about anything. For another thing, he's always watching me. He never closes his eyes, that I've seen, so if I wanted to make him something, he'd see me, and it wouldn't be a surprise. Besides, what do frogs like except flies and crickets and other icky things to eat? Thinking about what Og liked to eat gave me an idea. If I could only think of a way to distract him. I pulled out my notebook and began to make a plan. After school, while it was still light out, I decided to put my plan to work. I jiggled the lock that doesn't lock on my cage and scurried over to Og's cage. Og, there's something I need to do, but I'm worried that Aldo will come in and find me, I said. Could you watch the clock for me and warn me if it's time for him to clean? I don't know if Og can read or write, but in the past he has often warned me about things, particularly when I've lost track of time, so he must know something about clocks. Boing! Og hopped up onto the land part of his tank and faced the front of the room where the big clock is located. Hooray! He understood. I darted back to his tank and raced over to the corner where our food is stored. While I looked longingly at my beloved Nutri-Nibbles, Mighty Mealworms, Veggie Dots, and Hamster Choo-Choos, I passed right by. I glanced at the can of crickets. Ew. Then headed for the jar of froggy food sticks. The small sticks were perfect for what I wanted to do, but how was a small hamster going to get them out of a plastic container with a lid? Luckily, when I was making my plan, I thought about this. I took a run at the container and managed to knock it on its side. I almost got knocked on my side, too. I went up to the plastic cap and tapped it. Just as I feared, it was fastened tightly. However, I'm very, very, very strong for a very, very, very small creature. So I stood on my back legs and put both front paws against the lid and pulled. The edge only bent back a little, so I tried again, pulling even harder. Oof! But it still didn't come off. I don't give up easily, so I looked around. Lying on our table, not too far from my cage, was a pencil. I hurried over and rolled the pencil up to the froggy food sticks. Keep your eyes on that clock, I told Og. Boing, boing, he replied. I held the pencil with both of my front paws, put the pointed tip under the edge of the lid, and gave it one big push. All at once, the lid popped off, and a pile of froggy food sticks tumbled toward me. Ew! My whiskers wilted as the sticks gave off a smell like stinky fish. But this was a gift for Og, after all. He loves stinky fish. Stinky stuff. Everything all right, Augie? I squeaked. Boing, he said. It would take too long to carry the sticks to the side of Og's tank. I had a better idea. I stood up on 2 feet and pushed the pile with my front paws, moving them in the direction of his tank. Then I did it again and again until I had a nice pile of froggy food sticks in place. Luckily, Og was still looking toward the clock. I won't be long now, I told him. Boing, boing, Og twanged. Since I had it all planned out, it didn't take long for me to use my nose and paws to arrange the sticks in the shape of a Christmas tree. I wasn't sure I'd ever get the smell of stinky fish off of my paws, but after all, you shouldn't be selfish if you're giving a gift. Then I scurried back to my cage and tore out a page of my notebook where I'd made a little card for Og earlier in the afternoon. I had a little trouble with the card. I started out writing Happy Hanukkah, but I didn't know how to spell Hanukkah, so all I'd written was happy. Then I tried to write Merry Christmas, but I didn't know how to spell Christmas, so all I'd written was Merry. I'd been in a big, big, big hurry at that point, so I'd written frog. That is all I had time to write. It wasn't much of a holiday greeting, but it would have to do. Og, could you come over to my side of the tank now? I have something for you, I said. Then I scampered back to my cage. It took Og a while to move from one side of the tank to the other. I think he liked looking at the clock. But when he finally saw the food stick tree and the note, he said, Boing. It's a present for me, Og. It's a Christmas tree with a note that says, Happy Merry Frog. Oops, I'd forgot to sign my name, I explained. I hope you like it. Og stared and stared at the tree and the note with those bulging eyes of his. I was afraid he had no idea what I was talking about. Then all of a sudden he started hopping up and down, crying boing, 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 boing. He liked it. Og kept hopping and boinging. He was a very happy and merry frog. I was feeling happy and merry myself. I was resting comfortably in my cage when I heard Aldo approaching. Rattle, rattle, rattle. I think the wheels of his cart needed oiling. The door opened, and there he was. Hello, my friends, Aldo shouted as he came into room 26. Season's greetings. Hello, Aldo, I squeaked. Og splashed around in his tank. How do you like the snow? Aldo said. Hey, what do snowmen wear on their heads? I thought and thought, but I had no answer. Snow caps, Aldo replied, and he laughed and laughed and laughed. I laughed too. Aldo went right to work, cleaning our classroom. Say, fellas, I was happy to find out that they decided there would be no glitter at the show tomorrow, he said. You've got glitter once, you've got it forever. I've swept up pieces of glitter that have been hiding for years. Then I'm glad too, Aldo, I said. When Miss Wright had first said our class couldn't use glitter, I was upset with her. But I decided that this time, Miss Wright was right. After all, I wanted to get home after the show and be with Mama Maria, he said. I've got to start thinking about being a dad. I was sure that Aldo would be a great dad. He's already a great cleaner, a great student, and an unsqueakably great friend. Aldo dusted and swept all the tables in the room until he finally came to our table. What's this? He asked as he looked down at the froggy food sticks tree. It's a little Christmas tree. Then he laughed until his mustache wobbled. And a little card. Happy Merry Frog, he read. I guess somebody in this class likes you, Og. What am I saying? Everybody likes you and your friend Humphry. Boing, boing, Og agreed. But you haven't gotten to enjoy your present yet, Aldo said. Here, open wide. He scooped up a handful of froggy food sticks and threw them into Og's tank. Boing, 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 Og said as he opened his huge mouth wide to catch them all. Aldo laughed some more as he watched my friend. I think somebody gave you the best present in the world, he said. Right, Og? Og splashed and splashed until drops of water spilled over the top of the tank. Aldo was still laughing as he sat down to eat his dinner. Tomorrow's the show, he said. So if I don't see you after that, I wish you both the happiest holidays ever. Whatever you celebrate, may you celebrate it well. I wish that for you too, Aldo, I squeaked with great excitement, and for Maria and the baby and for everybody. Aldo chuckled. Humphry, there's nobody like you. I certainly hope not. Maybe there are two snowflakes alike somewhere, but there are no two humans who are alike, and I'm pretty sure no two hamsters are alike either. Nights are long in the winter, and if you're a wide-awake hamster, they seem to go on forever. On Thursday night, after Aldo left, I spun on my wheel, climbed my tree branch, made a trip to my poo corner, rummaged around for food, and it was still early. I sat in my cage looking out at the classroom lit by the street lamp outside the window. Og, I squeaked, isn't Holly's gingerbread house the most wonderful thing you've ever seen? Og splashed around, but he didn't seem too interested. I guess if the house had been made of crickets or something stinky, he would have liked it more. Have you noticed that it's just my size? I asked. Og was quiet, so I guess he hadn't noticed. I continued, Holly will probably take it home for the holidays. I was just thinking that I might go over and have a peek at it while I have a chance. Boing, boing, boing. Og sounded worried. Oh, I'll be careful, I told him as I jiggled the lock that doesn't lock and scurried out of my cage. I slid down our table leg and hurried over to the bigger table where the gingerbread house sat. The table is next to a reading area where Miss Brisbane keeps a tall wire rack full of books. If my friends have free time, they can pick out a book to read, or check it out, or take it home. The book rack reminded me of my climbing ladder, so I knew what to do. Very carefully, I pulled myself up from one wire to the next until I was on the same level as the gingerbread house. As I climbed, I saw some unsqueakably interesting book covers. One showed a dinosaur with huge teeth. I hurried past that one. But there was another one with a mouse wearing knight's armor, standing in front of a castle. I hope Miss Brisbane will read that one to the class someday. I hopped onto the table, and there it was, the gingerbread house, covered in the most yummy-looking candy I'd ever seen. Boing, boing, Og warned. I'm glad he did, because I was just thinking that no one would notice if I took a teeny bite of a candy cane or a nibble of a gumdrop. Boing, 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 boing. I almost thought Og could read my mind, but he was right. Holly had said that her mom had sprayed something on the house, and no one should eat it. All right, Og, I won't take a bite, I squeaked. As I inched closer, I noticed that instead of smelling like sweet, delicious candy and cake, the gingerbread house smelled like something Aldo used to mop the floor, and it was a lot shinier than cookies usually looked. The smell was strong, so I held my breath and gazed at the licorice stick fence and the candy cane chimney with the cotton candy smoke. I took another breath and held it long enough to peek in the windows of the house and see the gingerbread man inside. He gave me a jolly smile. I felt a little dizzy, so I gave the gingerbread house one more look, then scampered back to the book rack and made my way to the floor. When I returned to our table, I grabbed on to the blinds cord as usual, swung my way back up and let go, and leaped onto the tabletop. I have to be very, very, very careful with the timing of that move. As I passed by Og's cage, I said, "Thanks for reminding me that just because something looks tasty, it doesn't mean it's good to eat." Boing, 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 he agreed. Back in my cage, I wondered about what I'd said. If something doesn't look tasty, like an icky insect, is it possible that it could still be good to eat? Og certainly thought so, but I wasn't about to try a diet of flies and crickets and froggy food sticks. Ew. Humphrey's Winter Wanderings. If I got a present and Og did not, would he be green with envy? Green with envy is another way of saying, would he be jealous? What about you? If someone got a present and you did not, would you be jealous? Or would you be happy for them? I'll see you in GT.